So yeah, so I guess a follow up to that would be, do you think that so you'd be in, maybe you've already answered this and I just miss it. So you'd be okay with platforming these terrible opinions, right? So long as they're being pushed back against, so long as you have someone who's equipped to challenge them when they come
So
up.
my overall view is if there's some value in my audience knowing that these views exist and I feel equipped to rebut them, then I'm open to doing it. Basically, that's my view.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so next question is going to be from Gigacope. His name is free speech extremist, by the way. Um, what are the chances that AOC will run for president, and how fruitful do you think this would be?
I have no idea whether she plans to run for president, and I think how fruitful it will be depends on when she does it. I mean, I think if she did it, I guess she would just barely squeak in terms of being old enough by a few months in 2024, and I think it wouldn't go well. I think she'd have no shot whatsoever. I think in the future, who knows? We're just humans are not very good at making these type of predictions, and I think in the future, it's possible that she could have a real shot, or that she kind of evaporates and fades away and goes into doing something else. But I think in 24, if she ran, she would have no shot.
Okay. Next question is going to be from Autonomy. Autonomy, whenever you're ready.
Yes. What's going on, Pacman? Long time viewer. So there is like a common sentiment in the Black community that Black people are like politically inert, and that the right wing and the left wing are two sides of the same bird. So what is like a measure of progress that we can point to easily that is like either from Democrats or like a progressive policy that helps Black people that we can point to?
You're saying over what period of time, I guess, are you saying?
Recently.
Well, I mean, recently Trump's been president for 4 years. So I think I'm trying to, let me see if the best way I can kind of answer this. I mean, I think there's I would kind of put it in a different way. I would ask folks what matters to them. Okay. How do you evaluate how a community is doing? And then I would take their lead in diving deeper on that, so to speak. So if they say, well, I am concerned with what are the average wages of Black folks, for example, and then I would go and I would find the wage data and I would say, look, here's the period of time over which we can observe this. And you can look at how wages have gone up, and you can tie it to increases to the minimum wage, and you can tie it to different social programs regarding economic mobility, geographic mobility, et cetera. It's tough to answer the question in a vacuum because it's so broad. But usually when folks want to have conversations with me like that, I say to them, I put it on them to tell me, how would you measure improvement or worsening? And then kind of take it from there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, thanks, Autonomy. And next question is going to be from Cafe con Leche is his name. You're unmuted whenever you're ready, mister.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Hey, Patrick. What is that? So I have a quick question, but you just find it right over here. Sorry for the dogs in the background. Yeah, so whatever happened to
guys, I'm sorry. You sound like you're underwater and echoing, and there's a dog in the background. It's just sounding like just one long word to me.
Yeah, why don't we circle back to you, Mr.
Oh my God.
Please, and thank you.
Okay. Wait, hold on. Was that you?
That was me again, yes.
Oh, you sound much better now.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. All right, scratch that all over again. So long time, first time. You missed my Spanish speaking capabilities, but all right, whatever.
My pleasure.
What happened to to your Spanish show? I was following it for a little bit, it fell off, and yeah, just explain to us what went on.
Oh, it was a 13-week show just based around the election, basically from about a month before the 2020 election through the inauguration. It was designed to be kind of like a temporary thing. And we did it. It ended. We finished it.
Okay, so what was your takeaway from it? You being, primarily an English speaker trying to transition into like, the Spanish speaking kind of audience.
My biggest surprise was the degree to which conspiracy theories and disinformation targeted to the Latino community
Yes.
successfully have invaded the Latino community. I mean, the
Yes.
amount of Spanish language conspiracy theories and weird emails that I started getting when I did the Spanish show, it was genuinely depressing.
No, yeah, definitely. I'm of Mexican descent, and I'm gonna get to that in just a sec.
Yeah.
I'm from Mexican descent, and my parents are very much into into the president or the current president Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to like these like I don't want to say that word, but I just say the fanatic sort of videos. Like you'll see a lot of like pro Russian propaganda, pro like Assad propaganda, things of that sort. So you hit the nail right on the head on that. Now, getting back to the Mexico thing, whatever happened to Pedro, man?
I don't know. He hasn't called in for a while. I don't know where he is. I would love for him to call back in.
Yeah, you know what? Because he said he was from Colombia, and I always wanted to tell you this. He actually, it could possibly be that he is from Colombia, but in Mexico. So if you go on the map or on Google Maps and you search for Colombia, Nuevo León, there will be a Colombia that's right next to the Texas border. So that's just a little fun thing I found. I was just kind of like messing around online, and yeah,
We'll look
yeah,
for him. We'll
hopefully.
see if we can find him.
Yeah. Well, anyway, man, mucho gusto. I hope everything's going well with you, and take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Next question is going to be from Megwine. Megwine, whenever you're ready.
Hi, David. So my question is, why is the left so bad at organizing compared to the right? Or I guess why is the right so much better at organizing, like with CPAC and everything? And more importantly, how do we get better at it?
Yeah, I mean, I unfortunately, a lot of it is just money. I mean, the right pours money into getting people on campus, getting people as soon as they graduate. Organizations like Turning Point USA, they fund tons of media training for right-wingers. And the left just doesn't do it. And I've seen this before. I don't think it's that there is no money. I think it's just not invested in this type of thing. And people will say, well, Soros is one guy, and he's not really doing what the right is doing. But it's mostly just having the money and the determination to do it. And it's very depressing because if the left did what the right does, and we had an equivalent to CPAC and an equivalent to all of these organizations that are really well-funded and proactive, the left would be doing much, much better.
Yeah. If only we had someone on the left who has, quite a following and could mobilize people.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are people, but it's just, you can only do so much without millions and millions of dollars being poured in specifically to build these movements.
Yeah. Well, thank you, David.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Megwine. Next up is Froggy. Froggy, whenever you're ready, mister.
Hello.
Hello.
So I just wanted to ask, like, I watch Hakeem, and I saw a video where you said that, like, communism doesn't work, and I just felt that the arguments you gave weren't that well. So, could you, like, explain more on why you believe communism doesn't work?
Sorry, what? The arguments weren't that well what? Or where did you see this? Who's Hakeem?
it's never mind. All right, yeah. Can you just tell me, like, why you think communism doesn't work that well?
Oh man. I don't know that my arguments have ever been that communism doesn't work that well. I've explained why I'm not a communist. And there's a number of different reasons.
Yeah, that's like a personal opinion. That doesn't really matter to me. I just more really want to know why you think it doesn't work.
I'm not a guy who goes around talking about it doesn't work that well. I'm just not a communist.
Oh.
I guess the question would be, where has it worked well? I'm curious. You tell me.
I mean, I personally believe that the USSR was it's pretty good. I mean, they had 1%, 1 to 2% unemployment. They nearly eradicated homelessness by giving free housing. They pretty much won the space race, especially from a feudal backwater of Europe to a superpower. So, I mean, I would say the USSR was pretty good.
Okay, I've never heard anyone make that argument before, but that's interesting. Why do you think it ultimately failed?
I mean, you probably heard this before. I just think it was due to Gorbachev, just because. I wouldn't say it was his economic reforms that killed the USSR. It was more. I believe it's more of his social reforms. I mean, he would let like pretty much liberals come in the office and just ruin it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
That's why I think
From everything I've read about the USSR, I mean, I guess there's a question as to how you want to measure well-being, and this is a tough thing to do. But in terms of per capita GDP, I think the USSR never even got to a third of per capita GDP in wealthy, Northern European countries. So that's one metric that's at least a starting point to look at. But I mean, it's an interesting question. I mean, I'm willing to have my mind changed on anything, but I'm not hearing anything super compelling.
By the way, like the USSR GDP per capita was like, I believe, like 10,000 in 1990. So I don't know what it was for like Norway or somewhere like that in 1990.
Okay, yeah, and I have no idea if you're talking about PPP adjusted dollars or inflation adjusted or whatever. I just don't have the data in front of me. But yeah, I mean, I've not done videos about communism doesn't work, so I just am not. It's just not my argument to have.
Oh yeah, okay,
I'm just not a communist.
that's understandable.
Thank you.
Thank you, Froggy.
My pleasure.
Next question is from Evan, not Kevin. The question is, has your opinion changed on the Rittenhouse case?
In what sense? Changed since when?
I guess at all. So, or maybe this will be easier. What is your current opinion on the Rittenhouse case?
Okay, my opinion is that the Kyle Rittenhouse case is a shining example of so much of what is wrong with the United States. I believe it's a failure in parenting. It's a failure in education. It's a failure in gun culture and a failure of common sense. And I believe that per the law, it makes sense that Rittenhouse was found not guilty by reason of self-defense, because as the laws are written, it seems in line with the facts of the case.
Okay. And I guess as a follow-up to that one, we have a question from Ranger here. Ranger, whenever you're ready.
Hey, David. What's up?
Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, I wanted to ask your stance on gun control specifically, because personally, I'm a big believer that the United States, if it were to disarm, it would be a mistake. Because it's essentially the government would be taking guns away from people who might need them to protect themselves. Like, say, hypothetically, I'm a trans woman in a southern state, and there's a risk of me being, potentially attacked and killed for a hate crime.
Yeah.
I personally believe that if I'm under threat from lethal force, I should be able to have a weapon of equivalent or greater force to stop that threat to protect myself.
Right. In other words, you don't want only the right-wing nuts having the guns, it sounds like.
Yeah, basically, that's my position on it. And I think it would, if the left were to agree to disarming, it would very much head in that direction.
So I think that so the term disarm is a little bit loaded. I mean, I think here's the framework that I'm operating under. There's a Second Amendment in the United States, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Full stop. Given that there is a Second Amendment in the United States, we then can ask the question, do Democrats tend to do well when they prioritize gun safety legislation, or not well at the local level? And generally speaking, it tends to not be a smart thing for Democrats to run on at the local level, because they're called gun grabbers, and it seems to motivate Republicans to come out and vote against them much more than it motivates Democrats to come out and vote for them. Now, that being said, my opinion about gun safety regulations is there should be 100% universal background checks, even for personal transactions. There should be no gun show loophole. There should be significant actual penalties enforced, many of which are already on the books but are rarely enforced, for going around the regulations that exist. There should be mandatory gun insurance, the way that we have it with vehicles in most states. Not all, but in most states, you're required to have insurance. If you have a vehicle, you're required to complete a course and take a test, etc. I think that that should also be the case with guns. There should be relicensing over time. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to put limits on, clip capacity, for example. All of those things seem reasonable to me.
But yeah,
magazine capacity.
That's got to be the most pragmatic and reasonable take I've heard on like this issue from a Democrat. It's really good.
I'm not a Democrat.
Yeah. Oh, really? Shit.
Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. That's a really solid take.
All right. Well, thank you.
Less keen on the magazine restrictions, but I can completely get behind everything else.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's the Second Amendment. We need to start from the premise of what's real, and like the Second Amendment exists, and Democrats running on changing the Second Amendment, eliminating it, it seems like a recipe for political disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, I guess you could use the term optics. From an optics point of view, it's a good move.
All right. Yeah. No, I mean, and listen, the things I'm mentioning are so non-controversial in most of the world, but Republicans would still oppose all of them.
Yeah. Anyway, it's great getting on and talking to you, and I'm glad we were able to surprisingly have it come to like a really good. I guess that was a really good take. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I was able to satisfy your desire for a good take.
Thanks, see me.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ranger. So speaking of takes, so Anime King, his question is, what is your most out there / hot take? Right. So we just heard a reasonable one. What do you think your most controversial take would be?
I have no idea. That would be for someone else to tell me. I have no clue. What's my most controversial or hot take? I don't know. It's really for someone else to say.
Okay. It's pretty fair answer, Mr. Anime King. Next question is going to be from Jumpscare24. That question is, what are your thoughts on Canada's response to the truckers' protest, specifically referring to the seizing of financial assets?
Yeah. So when the emergency, I don't remember exactly what it's called in Canada, the Emergency Powers Act or emergency measures. I don't remember the name of it. When it was enacted, there was a ton of either out of ignorance or out of bad faith misinterpretation of what it did and didn't do. And the main thing I took issue with was, as often is the case, the idea that this was just the beginning of some slippery slope towards total authoritarianism, police state, or whatever. And then, like, after a couple weeks, Trudeau canceled it. And so to be totally frank, I don't know enough about the financial regulation piece, but I know that talking point you just gave me was widely disputed. I just did not follow the specifics of what it did from a banking standpoint in Canada closely enough to be able to say definitively what my opinion on that piece is. But I was very skeptical of the idea that this was Trudeau starting down a path of tyranny. And indeed, after a couple weeks, he canceled it and things are back to normal.
Okay. Well, I mean, speaking of seizing financial assets, Chronicle's question is, do you think it's fair for financial organizations like PayPal, Visa, and MasterCard to stop businesses in Russia and, lock Russian citizens out of accessing their funds, especially Russians who make a living through the internet, like YouTubers and Twitch streamers?
Do I think it's fair? Fair in what sense? Or do I think it's legal, or do I think it's moral? What do you mean by fair?
I think canonical means moral, I guess you'd say. And guys, if there are any like follow-ups here to the questions that you're asking through text, I can only interpret them so much. So if you want to clarify something, just ping me and let me know.
So listen, I mean, here's my view. Here's my view. Life is not fair, and there are tons of people, individuals in Russia, who don't agree with what's going on, and they are being hurt by what some of these companies are doing, and they are being hurt by the sanctions. There's no way to get around that. And so at the individual level, that's not fair. In other words, if some individual content creator in Russia does tech reviews and doesn't agree with what Putin did, and now that individual is, locked out of YouTube revenue, it's not fair at a personal level. It is absolutely something that these companies can do. They can choose to do business wherever they want and for whatever reason they do or don't want to. And the whole point here is that they believe either, number one, they'll get good PR from doing it, which is, kind of cynical, self-centered view. And they may be right. Or number two, they believe that they are participating in what they believe to be the right thing to do by trying to hinder Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So is it fair to the individuals? Absolutely not. But it's tough. This is what, as a number of governments have said we can do, short of starting to bomb Russia, to try to get them to back off. And whether it serves the greater good or not, everybody's got to kind of draw that line where they see fit.
Okay, and Conical, if you have any follow-ups to that, you can either come into the voice chat and speak to them directly, or just ping me with a follow-up in text chat. Thank you, David. Our next question is from Fipto. Fipto, whenever you're ready, mister.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I just had some questions about some takes that you've had over the past, I guess, year and a half, maybe.
Okay.
Over two stories. So of course, the first one, Cal Rittenhouse, and the second one would be on George Floyd. Like, kind of just a pick at your brain on the George Floyd instance, because I've advocated, one contention with his death over another, and I just want to pick at your brain and see what you believe in that instance. But on the Cal Rittenhouse case, judging from some of the takes that you've had, to be honest, I don't remember them outright completely. But does it kind of disenchant you of, the media and, how far they can go to actually slander a person, to take a large populace of people and make them think one way, even though it's the overt falsehood of something?
I don't know what you're talking about. So on Rittenhouse, I guess there were some claims that he was a white supremacist that didn't seem based in evidence. So that was bad. That was wrong. But I don't know. You're saying you don't remember the takes, but so is there a specific question for me, I guess?
I guess it's just kind of to pick at your brain kind of on, I guess, how trusting outright people can be of the media now. Because previously, I guess people could just take a news article and argue and advocate that news article is correct. But now we have to kind of think, okay, this news article could be correct, but we're not completely sure. Mm-hmm. And we shouldn't jump to any conclusions because of it. One thing I noted to my father-in-law, he watches MSNBC, and I had to show him an image of MSNBC saying that Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 black men. Now, that's outright false, as everybody could witness, whoever watched the court cases. And I mean, I guess the question is, does this kind of, disenchant you of what common news outlets people would reference as, arbiters of truth? Does that kind of disenchant you to, I guess, their authoritative fact checking, in a sense?
It doesn't really do anything to me, because I feel like I had a pretty realistic understanding of media literacy and how media operates before that. So for me, what I try to do is to critically analyze primary sources. And so to really look at, first of all, is what I'm looking at an opinion piece, or is it a rewrite of a primary source, or is it the primary source? So I kind of start with that. This is sort of really about basic media literacy. The Rittenhouse case, no more than anything else in particular, made me rethink that. I mean, I think one of the issues is when you refer to the media, that's really not one thing. Like, are we talking about newspaper articles that cite sources? Are we talking about some febrile screed from Tucker Carlson? Or, like, you know what I mean? Even referring to
established media.
Sorry, what was that?
Like people who've been around to the point of when the government paid for them to be, co-opted with them.
What do you mean? When the government paid who to be co-opted?
Like old generation media, like organizations that have been here for probably 2 decades or more.
So like Fox News.
Oh yeah, even them.
Yeah. And so what do you mean the government paid them to be co-opted by them?
Well, so there were some things that I could look back in the past where news articles would go, they wouldn't want to jump the gun, and they would kind of cite whatever the White House officials would say, the CIA officials would say.
Hold on, White House or CIA? What's an example story where did that happen?
Well, okay, so you could say I guess everybody could cite Iraq.
Okay. So on Iraq, the Bush administration made a case for war with Iraq that was based on bad intelligence.
Yeah.
Okay. And so therefore what? So that was 20 years ago. And so then what?
Or Tennessee, just on my driving.
Hello?
But I'd ask more on the MSNBC case, where they say that where Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 black men. And MSNBC, they're kind of like, they're really well known. They're one of the more popular media sources people subscribe to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have to tell you, I don't know where this is going, but people should understand, number one, are they analyzing a primary source or not? Number two, what are the biases of the source I am looking at? Number three, this is it's basic media literacy. We should start teaching it when kids are 10. We don't, and it's a real problem in this country.
Yeah. Well, I don't think people want to be as involved into politics as they feel that they should be now.
People don't want to be as involved in the politics as they feel that they should be now. I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know what that means.
I mean, you have tons of independents waking up now, and
what are they waking up to?
Well, I think in the past election, of course, you have some falsity. Some people that
you had what? You had falsity. What did you have?
Yeah, I'm saying people that believed in the false notions of QAnon, or people that followed Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I say the falsities of like in certain instances where people have just kind of awakened to a different reality, and everybody seems kind of politically activated.
Oh, okay. So people do want to be politically
Yeah, that's
active.
what I mean.
Okay, all right. I thought you said they didn't.
Well, yeah. Well, previously they didn't. Most people would have said that they don't want to have anything to do with politics, but now they're looking around going, they're kind of feeling like they're being, the rug's been swept out of under them,
By who?
By individuals.
Which individual?
Okay, so one individual I would say is, especially in Canada, do you know who Mr. Sunshine Baby is? He's been covering a lot of the protests.
No.
Okay, on YouTube, he actually blew up on YouTube. So he got about 200,000 subscribers in about 5 to 10 days, because he's just been covering what the Canadian news has been saying, what Trudeau's been saying, covering the protests, all of that. And he gave his own story too about how, specifically, he doesn't want anything to do with politics, but he's looking left and right and seeing what the Canadian government's doing and saying, okay, well, this is wrong. I feel like I need to step up to the plate now.
I see. Because,
it used to be, people used to feel like the government is, kind of, I wouldn't want to say daddy, but, the daycare worker who would take care of the things that you wouldn't think about.
So in other words, Canadian YouTuber Mr. Baby is one of the individuals you cited who pulled the rug out from under American independence. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
No, 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 no. Wait, what? No, no, no. He feels that the Canadian government pulled the rug out of under him
Oh,
because
I thought you said it was
certain people don't wanna get
independence that
vaccinated
did
and
it.
whatnot.
Well,
Yeah,
listen, you've really said
you
it
don't have to read
all.
into these questions too hard.
Oh, no, yeah, okay.
Like,
I'm not.
I'm
yeah.
not. I'm not trying to trip you up or anything.
Oh no, I'm not worried about that. Don't worry about that. You're doing good.
Okay.
All right, good. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Okay. I do have one more question.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. I don't want to take up too much time, but George Floyd.
Yes.
So, with the recent stats and fentanyl overdoses and deaths of people, does that kind of enlighten you maybe a little bit on how dangerous this drug actually is?
I don't know what that has to do with George Floyd, because the medical experts who testified in the case said that was not a factor in his death, if I recall correctly.
Well, the medical examiner, I believe, before they saw the video, they had testified that if they had not seen the video, that they would have thought he died from an overdose.
Okay, I don't remember that being testimony in the case.
Detected in his body.
Listen, fentanyl is a problem. I'm against fentanyl. People, when it's not properly administered, and fentanyl can be bad.
Yeah, I don't know if you know about the stat of 18 to 45-year-olds that killed the most 18 to 45-year-olds last year, even more than COVID did.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I think we got to run, but I'm curious, who did you vote for in 2020? Hello?
Definitely Donald Trump.
You voted for Trump. Okay, yeah. That I'm not surprised to hear that.
Oh, okay. Why is that?
I'm just not surprised.
We do have a lot of people.
Yeah, let's go. Let's keep going. But that was a very interesting phone call.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question is going to be from Unix root kernel.
Please clip that. For my team, you got to clip that, okay? My team's going to clip that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Her question is, how can educational reforms be introduced in schools, like media and scientific literacy, like you just expressed a little bit ago?
Yeah.
When we have conservatives calling education reform liberal indoctrination.
Right. So here's the thing. Earlier we had a really good question about how the right is just much better at funding these groups like Turning Point USA. They do CPAC, they have Unity, they activate. It's like kids got to put masks on. Next thing you know, you've got every crazy parent at these school board meetings completely losing their mind and making it impossible to do anything. A lot of education policy, most education policy, is basically local, municipality, and state. And so the left needs to really activate and start demanding basic media literacy and critical thinking be taught everywhere starting in 5th grade. When they go and they say, we don't want masks at the school board meetings, the left needs to do that 10 times over, but saying we want critical thinking and we want media literacy. If you start that in a serious way when kids are 10, a lot of this entire problem, including that last phone call we had, it would all take care of itself. But we've got to activate. We've got to be going to the school board meetings. We've got to be demanding the curriculum changes.
Okay, awesome. Next question is going to be from Solomon. The question is, what are your opinions on what's going on between China and Taiwan? And should America and the West try to build up and increase their naval presence in the Taiwanese Strait in the hopes of deterring possible future Chinese invasion of Taiwan?
Yeah. So I think that it would be incredibly, the types of interventionist ideals that I oppose would, because I'm opposed to that, me as the guy sitting in the U.S., it would not be appropriate for me to say, yeah, go and stuff the seas full of American, Navy vessels now, absent those requests from coming from those in the area. I said at the very beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine that this may well be an opportunity that piques the interest of China to pay very close attention to and see what does Russia get away with in Ukraine to then think about, well, what might we be able to get away with in Taiwan? And we've seen some encroachments on airspace over the last few weeks. So I think it would be naive to think China's not thinking really hard about what can we get away with. But I think they're probably going to wait a little longer to see how Russia-Ukraine plays out. But I think there's no question that they have those ambitions 100%.
Awesome. Okay. So speaking of ambitions, next question is from Her Diables. I can't say that word. Mr. Her, you are unmuted. Go whenever you're ready.
Yeah, hello. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I'm from Germany. It's Herr Diepholz.
Her Diepholz. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for letting me ask my question.
My pleasure.
So my question is, as the Ukraine crisis is going on, do you think more European countries like Austria, Sweden, or Finland are going to join the NATO?
I don't know. I mean, that process takes some. Wait, hold on a second. Which countries did you mention? Let me look up the current list of NATO members.
Austria, Sweden, and Finland.
Austria, Sweden, and Finland. Finland's an interesting one because of its proximity to Russia, and I might consider that in a slightly different category because there's some strategic relevance to Finland. I don't know. I mean, the process of joining NATO is not a short process, and so even if there are new NATO members in reaction to what's happening right now in Ukraine, I don't think we're going to see that immediately. I think there's going to be much more immediate decisions to be made. Like, for example, do NATO troops get sent in to intervene? Do any of the countries that said we're not going to send troops, like the US, change their mind and say we're going to send troops? Those questions to me seem much more timely than whether there will be new NATO members, because that's a sort of a slow process. But I don't know the answer. Ultimately, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I've heard about questions where the 60% of the asked people in Sweden wanted to join NATO, and that's why the politics are talking about it right now.
Yeah, I just don't think that, I mean, there's a lot that has to be sorted out first, I think, before new NATO membership for example, Sweden is really seriously discussed. So I think it's sort of like something for down the road. I don't see it as immediately relevant to the conflict.
Okay, thank you. Good night from Germany.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Next question is going to be from Brussels Andrew. That question is, back in 2019, Trump blocked the appointment of new judges to the WTO appellate body, a major blow to multilateralism. More importantly, Biden has not reversed the ban. Given Biden's commitment to international organizations and liberalism, why hasn't this issue been addressed by the administration?
I just don't really think Biden cares. I mean, here's the thing, with a lot of these things, you often have to take a position. You often have to take a position when you're campaigning for something. And the prototype for the epitome of this to me is the student loan thing, where Biden was essentially pushed into saying he'd consider forgiving some student loans. And I never thought Biden really cared about that. And now people are saying, why hasn't Biden forgiven student loans? And the answer is because I don't think he really cares about that. Now, there's actually some detail with the student loans thing, which is Biden actually has forgiven more dollars in student loans than any other president, but it was specifically people who were essentially scammed by for-profit schools. The details don't matter, but the whole thing was, I don't think he really cares. With everything that's going on right now, and Biden suffering from low approval and needing some major accomplishment, nominations to the WTO appellate court, I just don't think it's on his radar. And it's kind of depressing to just see it that way, but I just don't think he really cares.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. And speaking of one of those big fish, next question is going to be from A Beard 19. That question is, do you believe the rising gas prices will accelerate the West's development of renewable energy?
Well, I tweeted about this earlier, actually, and I said, Obviously, it takes time to transition off of gas. We can't just be like, oh, there's a crisis with oil, let's switch to electric cars tomorrow. Obviously, we can't do that. But it should really be making us think of the fact that we've failed to quickly enough move away from fossil fuels over the last 10 years already. So I hope that this really accelerates the move away from gas-powered vehicles and home oil heating, et cetera. But unfortunately, I worry that it won't, because there's still so much money in fossil fuels. There's still so much geopolitics that's based almost exclusively around the oil trade. So yeah, any logical person would say, wow, this is like another reminder that we could be far less reliant on burning these substances. But we seem to have a complete quagmire when it comes to really getting off of this stuff, and financial incentives are 90% of the reason why.
Yeah, I honestly, I fill my gas like once a week, maybe. And when I went out, it was like almost $6 a gallon. And I can't imagine if I were in the financial position that I was in, 10, 12 years ago,
Right.
or when I started my business. I can't imagine how I would have like survived,
Yeah.
right? How I would have gotten around. So I feel so bad for people, young people, people who are already barely scraping by.
Yep.
Suddenly, yeah, we need to start looking at other options.
Yeah. And, there's times when in the past gas has gone up 15 cents a gallon. And it's like, listen, for 99% of people, they don't drive enough for that to make a substantive difference in their monthly budget. They just don't. We're now talking about something very different. We're at $4.23 a gallon or $4.19 a gallon or something like that average. And it looks like it could be going to $5.20. You're now really talking about a change that can impact people's monthly budget. In addition, because trucks will be paying more for fuel, it's going to start impacting the cost of a lot of household items. And no, this is serious.
Yeah, I mean, I just to kind of hit on this again, because I remember digging around in my seats, right, for change, right, to find 25 cents to put in the gas tank, right. And I imagine that there are lots of people out there in a similar position. So yeah, if you guys are listening, you please, we really need to push on this.
Yep.
Write letters, do whatever you can, because it's desperate for a lot of these people. Okay, my little spiel is over. Next question is gonna be from Philip O'Fish. Philip, as soon as I find you on this list, you're gonna be muted, and go for it whenever you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, watch the show quite a bit.
Thank you.
Do you see the U.S. as actually backsliding from democracy at this point and moving towards some sort of ungovernability? And if so, if you do see that, what is the meaningful steps that we as individuals can take to avert this disaster?
So so 2 parts. There has been a backslide in the United States in terms of democracy. There's no doubt about it. There's a number of different reports, a number of different measures and indices that are used, and the U.S. has been backsliding for sure. I still remain cautiously optimistic, and I might end up eating my hat in 10 years. I still remain cautiously optimistic that the United States is not going to become this authoritarian dystopia. But there's no question that a certain level of authoritarianism, a certain level of attacks on, listen, Trump straight up would kick people out from the press room when he didn't like them, said the media is the enemy of the people, called reporting he didn't like fake news, expected the Supreme Court and local courts to just do what he wants because that's what he wants. These are really big infringements upon press freedom and judicial freedom. It's a really crazy thing. He would say, the things you're hearing and seeing, you can't believe them. Really dystopian stuff. Some of it sort of like out of 1984, some of it out of Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. So yes, the U.S. has been backsliding, but I remain cautiously optimistic that it's not going to become an authoritarian dictatorship.
Do you see countries like India, Brazil, or even the Philippines as kind of models of the intermediary steps between U.S. now and some sort of dystopian future?
I I see them as in between in many ways. I hope that it never actually is what takes place. But Yeah, I mean, you can look at these nationalist authoritarian movements in a lot of different places to get a sense of the ideology. And to be perfectly frank, I did a segment last week about why so many Republicans love Putin. A lot of the stuff that the Trumpites would like to see, you already see in Russia with Putin, and that's pretty scary.
Great, thanks. That's it for my question.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Fish. Next question's from Magma. The question is, in light of the current situation in the EU and Ukraine, do you think it would be sensible to punish Russian users on Discord? And I assume that means restrict their access to Discord.
Oh man, I mean, with all of, I guess the point is to what end, right? What is the point? And so, like, McDonald's is temporarily shutting down some locations. I guess they call them restaurants.
Well, I can give you a reason, right? That this might be like something to consider.
Sure.
There are servers, communities on Discord that exist solely to peddle Russian propaganda, for
Right.
example. Right. So, and I'm assuming Magma, when he asked this question, was thinking of those. I hope. I hope he doesn't mean just banning Russian users for no reason.
My instinct on that would be that it's sort of like when Reddit banned the Donald subreddit. If you have individual users spreading disinformation, you can ban them. If you have a particular channel or server that is spreading disinformation, I have no problem with that. I don't know that just a blanket ban on all Russian users is the way to go.
Okay. Next question is going to be from Darasum Nebulin. If I pronounce that correctly.
Love it.
You are unmuted whenever you're ready.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, the name was right. Thank you.
Oh, cool.
I have a question. Romney, recently on a show, you said something to the extent that him and another politician, if you had to choose, Mitt Romney would be your choice, as he made a principled stand against Trump. And so on. I remember when I was young and candidate against Barack Obama, and me and my class were very, well, we could say now, had a Trumpian moment about him, to the extent that he's vile.
I apologize for interrupting. I'm losing every third word. I heard you say something about Romney when I know that you referred to when I talked about Romney versus Manchin, and now you're talking about Obama versus someone else?
No. When Mitt Romney was in running against Barack Obama.
Obama. Yes.
In my class, I was 14 at the time, I think. We were very aghast that would be a possibility, having someone like him as a president.
Him being Mitt Romney or him being Obama?
No, Mitt Romney.
Okay.
We loved Obama.
Got it.
Do you see a way to Republicans going back to someone like Mitt Romney, or even more, having principles that they stand for?
Yes.
Or is it not viable anymore?
If Trumpism is soundly defeated and they become convinced that it wasn't voter fraud, it wasn't, whatever that they lost because Trumpism is a disaster for them. If they really lose, then I believe they would go back to something like Mitt Romney. But if they keep winning, or plausibly winning, then they seem determined to stick with Trumpist stuff for the time being.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry for the long-winded talk.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you. Next question is going to be from Bree. Bree asks, David, do you believe that American society is beginning to question pride in our own nation more or less due to recent elections and events? And do you believe that internal distrust of the U.S. government is growing?
Those are really empirical. They're just polling questions. I don't have the polling in front of me, so it's just me speculating. You know, that's a question to which there is an answer. And we know that since Trump left and Biden came in, the opinion of the U.S. globally has improved. Like that we know empirically, no matter what Don Jr. says. And these are empirical questions. I just don't have the data in front of me. I'll give you my personal take, which is, for me, when I think about patriotism, I think about things like, what good is my country doing around the world? Or how does the country take pride in making sure everybody, even the least among us, as the phrase is, have a basic acceptable standard of life? Those are the things I think about, not like military might and nationalism and stuff like that. And so for me, I'm very comfortable being critical of what the United States does when it doesn't meet my ideals. But as to whether people in general are more comfortable saying this type of thing, I think you've just got to look at polling, and I don't have the polling data in front of me.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from Arthur Wellesley. And Arthur, where are you on this list? I'm going to circle back to you because I can't find him. So while we're waiting for Arthur to pop up, the next question is going to be from Gabriella M. Gabriella, whenever you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to know if you believe that companies such as McDonald's pulling out of Russia could have negative impacts on younger generations and perhaps their perception of basically countries outside of the West. Like, is this going to be a new Cold War feel for specifically younger people?
McDonald's is temporarily closing a few stores or restaurants or factories, whatever they call them. And I think that it's mostly for optics. I have a hard time imagining that decision by McDonald's is going to significantly foment a new Cold War. I think if there was a bigger, if we're talking about extended sanctions and Netflix cutting off Russia, McDonald's stays close. If you see this as a long-term and ubiquitous thing, I think there'd be more to talk about. But quite frankly, I think McDonald's is just doing what they think will look good in the immediate, and it's going to be very temporary.
Okay, I just remember a speech actually from Obama when he was in Vietnam, and he spoke about the necessity for the JCPOA with Iran and opening back up to Vietnam because young people weren't to blame for an authoritarian that in many chances came into power before they were even born.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think you could even apply that to Cuba as well, where the Cuban embargo doesn't make any sense. I think what's happening acutely right now in this short period of time with Russia and Ukraine is a little bit different. Now, if it lasts 20 years, then I'm going to feel differently about it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I just hope that the sanctions remain as narrow on the people in charge as possible to not have unnecessary consequences for young city people who are, because really sanctions, there's not a lot of evidence that they do a lot to get people to protest and things like that. We have Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, many cases that actually point to the contrary, that rallying around the flag is a huge possibility.
I don't disagree with you.
Thank you for taking me.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Next person is going to be Arthur Wesley again, or Wellesley. I found him this time. Arthur, whenever you're ready, mister. Arthur? Now his mic's not working. That's unfortunate.
Please proceed, Governor.
Okay. Arthur, we'll circle back to you one more time in a little bit. But if not, I'm just going to read out your question. So the next question is therefore going to be from Conical. The question is, would you support decriminalizing all drugs to help end the war on drugs?
Yes, I support decriminalizing all drugs and treating them as a public health issue. Where I stop short for now, and this is only because I've not heard a good case made, I don't know about legalizing recreationally things like heroin and cocaine. I've not seen a really good case made for that. But on decriminalization, absolutely.
Now, as part of that, would you be for like? So my understanding of the way that Portugal did this was they decriminalized the use of these things and I think possession. But if you were selling these drugs, that was still like a criminal act, right? Is that the kind of decriminalization? I'm sorry, decriminalization you're talking about?
It depends on which drugs. I think that there are drugs where I don't, you really should legalize and regulate. But if we're strictly speaking about decriminalization, I think you need to take it on a drug by drug. I think that selling and produce, if you let's take cannabis for example. If you decriminalize cannabis, I'm thinking you decriminalize use and you decriminalize possession and you decriminalize growing it in your backyard. And then on mass dealing, I think you have to think about the best way to go forward. If you decriminalize cocaine, I don't know that you decriminalize the dealing. Man, it's complicated. I have to think more about that. Maybe you do. I'd want to think about that a little more.
Okay. So we're gonna try Arthur one more time.
Please.
Arthur, fingers crossed. Go for it.
Hello. Perfect.
There you are.
Right. I wanted to ask, why do you think right-wing people end up right-wing and left-wing people left-wing? Like, is it a lack of education on issues? Is it different core values? Is it what people are socialized into? Yeah.
So there's a lot of studies about this, and there's not really one answer. So first and foremost, there's some work that suggests that I always hesitate to say that the brains of conservatives and liberals are different, but to some degree, there's a different, Jonathan Haidt has written about this. There are different sensibilities to, for example, disgust and other mechanisms, fear centers in the brain, et cetera. So this is like one part of it. There's a cultural piece, which is people are statistically more likely to have the politics that their parents have and that they grew up around. So, like Mississippi continues to have more conservatives than liberals. And part of it is that conservative parents continue to have children and statistically they're more likely to be conservative. So I think that's a factor as well. There's not one answer to this. Hello?
Arthur?
Yeah, no, okay. I mean, I just wanted to get your thoughts, that was all.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Arthur. Our next question is going to be from Han Feizi. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce it correctly. Whenever you're ready.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And moderation team, just as a heads up, I'm sort of getting to the end of my time, so maybe we'll just do a couple more.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so my question is about
Please proceed,
gerrymandering.
Governor.
I'll just read it out.
Sure.
Given that gerrymandering is a serious problem that undermines the democratic process, what do you think about acceleration about gerrymandering? If Democrats strategically gerrymandered some state to make the wrong more obvious, might they be able to force the hand of the Supreme Court? I'm sort of worried that otherwise the right-leaning Supreme Court will not act and gerrymandering will go on indefinitely.
That's a really interesting question. So the idea is Democrats, instead of trying to re-gerrymander in their favor when they're able to, they just make the gerrymandering even more overtly right-wing so that the Supreme Court would have no choice but to act.
Yeah, it could be either way, just to make the wrong of gerrymandering more obvious so that the Supreme Court would have to do something, where it would just be so explicit that the threat to democracy would be more obvious.
I hesitate to suggest that that's a good idea because it's already so damn obvious. I mean, look up the shape of Dan Crenshaw's district in Texas, and I have a hard time believing, as obvious as it is now, that if it's even more obvious that all of a sudden the Supreme Court's going to change it. And unfortunately, in the interim, it's going to lead to even more lopsided results for Republicans. So I think that that's a dangerous idea. I mean, I think it's super interesting to talk about, but I think it's dangerous.
All right, thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, so we're going to do two more. We're going to be respectful of David's time. Arab, what's your name? Arab Love Russia, I think your name is. You're next. Whenever you're ready, mister.
Yeah, so
I noticed that a lot of your content is based on like Trump, January 6th, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm wondering like why don't you focus on like real politics instead of like this weird like Trump stuff?
Okay, what's a topic you'd like me to cover?
You should cover like the fight for Medicare for all, the fight for labor, instead of like, oh, Trumpers said this, or like that anti-vaxxers scream in a Walmart.
Well, we cover all of those. I do know exactly what you're saying. I appreciate the question. We do cover all of those things, and I absolutely love the feedback.
All right. Well, let me give you a challenge before I go. Can you talk? Can you not make a video about Trump for like 1 week? Just 1 week.
What's the point of the challenge?
Just to see if you can do it. Just to see if you can not talk about Trump for a week.
And what would that prove?
I don't know. I mean, if you look at your channel, every single day it's like Trump investigation or January 6th committee. It's like, why don't you just do 1 week where it's like, I'm not going to talk about Trump. I'm going to restrain from Trump stuff, and I'm going to go to other things.
Okay, and if I do that, then what would we prove or achieve?
Like the whole politics world is going to like change. Everything's going to change.
Just based on my YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really some. I should think. That's a lot of power. I mean, when you think about it that way, that's really a lot of power. Yeah.
I got to say, I sincerely regret you being one of the last questions. But thank you. Thank you, Mr. Next question, last question, unfortunately. And we will it's gonna be from Scribbles. Scribbles, if you're ready, go for it.
Hi, here. I'm just gonna step up. I'll be right back. I'm sorry, I'm getting my nails done. I just want.
Hold on a second. You're at a nail salon right now?
Yeah, and I feel bad. They're picking up my color for me, and I totally just left them. I'm sorry. I'll be right back. 1 second.
Oh my God. What is that,
yeah,
like acrylic or something?
Yeah, I'm getting my tips redone, actually.
Sorry, you're getting what redone?
My tips.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Holy
So
shit.
it's acrylic, but they're gel, right?
Yes.
Like, you don't want them to chip, right? Like no chips.
I gotcha.
Anyways, okay. Hi. Okay. First comment, real quick. Hi. Okay. I'm Dina. First comment. Your voice is way deeper on these calls. Like on your YouTube channel. I don't know why. Is that weird? Okay. Second comment. I kind of want to pick your brain about hate speech, right? Because so I feel like I'm kind of like a moral fear. Like, so like I'm not a moral relative when it comes to hate speech, right? Because I still think there's like objective things when it comes to like something should not be crossed when it comes to hate speech. But like also I get so like I'm Palestinian. So like I get when it comes to a point where like BDS obviously is like totally slandered in like American media where it's like, oh, it's a terrorist organization, all this BS, right? But also there's some things that literally just should not be crossed in, I think, like civil speech, right? So I just like wanted your view on like what you perceive as hate speech and like if you do think that any speech should be allowed. Like if you're like a free speech like absolutist, you know what I mean?
I am not. Wow, that's a lot there. You're shot out of a cannon today, I have to say.
Oh no, absolutely no. This is like how I typically talk. I'm actually talking really slow right now because I don't want people here to think like I'm on crack cocaine, you know what I mean? With love and peace. Sorry, okay, just go on.
You're talking slow right now, you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well, good. Listen, I am close to a free speech absolutist. Now, hold on a second. Are you in what context? Are you just saying like on Twitter or what, or if I had my own platform or what do you, or the government? What do you mean?
Okay, so like, so I get the whole platform debate. It's like, oh, I own Twitter, so I could say this, right? But when people say that, I reply, Twitter is definitely now public space, to be honest, right? But okay, let's just do the government context because like if we went into the whole Twitter debate, that'd be a whole other conversation, right? So we'll just do government debates right now, right? Like if we're in a public space, like debating on protesting, right?
Yeah.
How free should it be, right? Because like I know there's this whole like content versus time and space, but like the government can obviously use time and space even when they just want to do content, just to be like, oh, we're just putting a curfew because, you know, we want to protect the public, but it's actually because they want to, you know, limit BLM protests, right?
Time and space. That's interesting. Now, are you talking metaphysically? Like, are we talking about the government could even bend space-time to its advantage?
No, I'm talking about like, you know how they could do curfew laws? If you're talking about it, like if you're taking it to court and stuff, you can be like, oh my God, I know what you're doing. I sound stupid. You know what I mean? Like curfew laws, right? Because I'm from Wisconsin too. So like during the the protest that led to the like what's his name or whatever his name is,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Are you talking about? Whoa. Are you talking about Kyle Rittenhouse?
Yeah, but the reason why Kyle Rittenhouse whole thing was they shouldn't have been out in the first place because there was curfew laws, and they put the curfew laws because of they were saying, oh, they want the safety of the public. But really, if you're going to take it to court, they were actually doing it because of the BLM. Like it was the content, not the time reasoning. You know what I mean?
I actually don't know where you mean. Where is your accent from? Are you from New York?
No, I'm from Wisconsin.
Wisconsin? That's a very unusual accent.
No, like, do you want to? Okay, okay. So I took a class on this. That's why I know because I was going to be a lawyer and then had a mental breakdown, right? So I took an undergrad class about this, right? So the reasoning if you took this to court, right? There's two there's like strict perception of it, and then there's like non-strict perception of or like whatever. Oh my god, I should have my notes in front of me. I'm literally at this law right now. So like the time thing is like we're going to not allow protest because of the timing versus we're not going to allow the protest because we don't like the content of what you're protesting, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times the government says we're going to not allow it because of the time, because it's too late. And they use that a lot though when it's the content they don't like either. But they can get away with it because of the timing. Do you get what I mean?
You're not from Long Island? Are you serious?
Oh my god. But like I want to pick your brain about hate speech, right?
Yes, we're going. You want to pick my brain about hate speech? That part I understand. We've not gotten anywhere further than that. So, wow. Listen, it sounds like a lot is going on. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the call. I hope that the manicure goes well. What's a manicure cost in Wisconsin anyway?
Okay. Oh my god. Okay, the original manicure was like literally $60, but it's only $40 now because it's just a retail, so it's fine.
I'm sorry. What is it? How much does it cost?
It was $60 for the original one because I get a particular shape, right? I get an almond with a round tip because I hate square. Like square shaped manicures look like really abrasive and really like masculine to me, and I fucking hate it, right? So if you want something really soft, if you like have a girl in your life, to tell her always get almond with round tip. Yeah.
Can you just tell me where you're really from? Like that
Wisconsin.
You're not from Long Island.
No.
Wow. Well, listen, thank you so much. I can't think of a better note on which we would. No, I don't even know what the question is. You want to pick my brain about hate speech? I don't even know what that means. I mean, I don't know.
Oh my god. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to say thank you, but.
All right. Well, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Good luck with your manicure. Okay.
Yeah, that was really something else. I mean, that was interesting.
So we said that was the last question. So David, well, first, all the people in chat, I apologized if we didn't get you in. Did my best to get in as many people as possible. Maybe David will, see to grace us with his presence again at some point.
I would love to. I would love to. On the basis of the last call, I'm willing to come back anytime.
Okay. Oh, you guys can thank Scribbles for making that happen.
Thank you.
So yeah, David will be in touch with you to try to set that up. Really, 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 really appreciate you coming on, and I personally really appreciate you coming on. You were actually one of the people that was pretty like instrumental, right, in my like political awakening, my personal political awakening.
Wow.
Fucking years ago. You were in my rotation of like, the YouTube content creators that I thought was like reasonable, well researched, well informed, putting forward arguments that I thought were solid. Even when I disagreed with you, I appreciated what you had to say. So I sincerely appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure doing it.
And for those of you who aren't aware of where to find David, I'm going to post all of his links in the announcements again. He's currently streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/David Pakman, but you'll find him on YouTube. He has a website. He has a nationally syndicated radio show, I think it is, or podcast.
Indeed. It's all of it, all of the above.
Yeah, he's doing everything. And if you guys want to be on here and not sound like an idiot when you're speaking to people, listen to David. He'll do a lot of the legwork for you, and he'll give you the right opinion. David, thanks again. Is there anything you want to say before you head off?
No, I mean, we're going to be, this has been an incredibly ripe content generation tool. And I think over the next week, we're going to be pulling a lot of the most interesting phone calls and we'll be putting them on our YouTube channel. And it's really been a gold mine, quite frankly, of what the kids these days call content.
Okay. Well, hopefully there's enough gold there to get you back in here at some point.
It's going to get me to the end of the rainbow. Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Yep. Have a great day. Wow. And throughout that, people might be interested to know I received anytime we do this, people start direct messaging me and calling me on Discord. Like I'm going to interrupt the AMA to just talk to them. It's very, very weird. Wow. Okay. So for our editing team, the calls we absolutely, I think, have to do are the Wisconsin caller at the very end. That one person that went endlessly about the independents had the rug pulled out from under them. The guy who challenged me not to talk about Trump for a week. Right? Those are like the three wackiest, I think, for sure. The Trump guy. Okay. Very good. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me today. I'll be back with another stream soon. Follow, like, subscribe, all these different things. Don't cancel. Everything but canceling.